Hey guys, Coach Dan here. Weirdest thing you watch on YouTube, right? For me, I reckon. I don't know if this is weird, but like outdoor camping, even though I don't go camping, or bushcraft, I think they call it. And competitive eating. Why do I spend my life watching competitive eating? Terrible. Anyway, those are some of the guilty pleasures I have, watching a bit of bushcraft and competitive eating. Anything else? No, those are the two main terrible ones. So today we're back with a back workout. Loving life. We're going to get in here, we're going to get jacked up. We're going to get a back that helps you kind of fly away. You spread the wings and then you can just fly away. That's the goal. So big back workout, busy day. Got to schedule the workout in, got to make it a priority. Get in, you get in here and you just put in good effort. That's it. Get in, put in good effort, do enough of that good effort, and then you move on to the rest of your life. You don't have to go for some superhuman effort or out of this world effort, just enough. So, what else I got for you? What about new album currently, Sleep Token, their new album, which is called Even in Arcadia. Nothing wrong with that. If you like a bit of Sleep Token, it's like ballads, like a bit of heavy in there. This guy starts playing like a violin or something, or a fiddle as the people in the know call it. So, 3 things. Competitive eating on YouTube. What was the other one? Bushcraft and outdoor camping. Don't know why I watched that, but that's legit. Sleep Token, Even in Arcadia. All right, back workout. Enough shit talk. We're going to start with a bit of isolation work to get the lats a bit toasty before we get into our compound movements. Let's get to shit. All right, so first up, we have the machine pullover. So this is going to be one of the closer things we can get to some lat isolation. So pulling the arm down the lat. Now, whenever you do lat work, usually it comes in a kind of pulling format, rows, pull downs, things like that. Here, we do a pullover motion to try and isolate the lats. Now, your long head of your tricep will probably work here a little bit, rear delt. They'll all get in the act a little bit here, but this is probably the closest we can get to isolation of the lats. We also can get it with like a lat prayer. You might do with a cable machine where you're pulling down here like this into that kind of whatever rope or bar. But we have a machine here, and if you don't have a machine, sucks to be you. So seat belt here allows for a little bit of stability just to hold me in place. The pedal lets me push it so I can get into position. Let that back, and then it's about driving the arm down. So that motion there, that's a big job of the lat. This would be shoulder flexion, shoulder extension, kind of pulling your arm down and back in towards your spine and hip area. We're trying to get the lat a little bit fired up before we go into our rowing movements. We'll do about 2 sets here, 10 to 15 reps. Yeah, I take a reverse grip here. I find that feels a little bit more effective than an overhand. That's preference, I would say. For me, that feels more effective. All right, let's go. So we go from the machine pullover to our first rowing movement or first pulling movement of the day. Single arm plate loaded row. This one's called a compound row. This can be done both arms at one time, but I find getting one arm and kind of keeping the arm nice and close to the side works a little better, or feels a little bit more effective, should I say. So single arm means I can line things up. So with rows for your lats, usually you want them to come close to the body, because a lat is a muscle that kind of attaches to your front of your arm, wraps down under your ribcage, heads in towards your spine, and then down towards your pelvis. So this is not going to use your lats, but it will allow some other things like your upper back and things like that to get involved. And if we want to bias this as much towards the lats as possible, we probably want to keep our arm nice and close to our body and even have the sensation of pushing it in towards the spine. Same would be true for pull downs. We want to keep the arms somewhat close and drive them down versus arms going out to the side. The other versions are not wrong, they just start to incorporate some other muscles, and that's cool as well if that's what you're trying to train. But if we're going lats, our horizontal rows for lats, be it single arm row like this, machine row, the low row, dumbbell row, if we want it to be latty, keep the arm close. So what it'll look like, I'll strap in, got my grips here so I don't lose grip and I can really focus on the muscles that I'm trying to train. We have this big length out, this big stretch. I can feel that big stretch through the lat. I'm over to the side, and then I'm driving that arm back and around in towards my spine. So arm nice and close. The fact that we've already isolated our lats first up, hopefully will make it feel such that I can really feel them during this as well. So that might affect my performance here potentially. It's almost like a bit of a pre-fatigue thing, but I find it quite helpful to kind of connect with the movement and really focus on what we want. So yeah, over to the side, 1 foot here for a bit of stability, big stretch out, keep the arm close, right in the pocket, squeeze that lat nice and tight. All right, 2 sets here, let's go. Neutral lat pull down next. So if we think about the lats, and if you've ever seen a model of the lats, they kind of come from underneath the armpit, kind of wrap around the rib cage. Some of the fibers will go in like this, and then some will kind of go down towards the pelvis or hips, right? So if we're doing movements for the lats, there is some potential merit in training not only this kind of motion for the lat, but also this. So in regards to lat training, I often do that. I often have either an exercise at least where we go like this horizontally and when we go vertically, just to tick all the boxes to make sure we're training all those fibers. Now, is that absolutely necessary? Potentially not. Potentially like our rows for the upper back and stuff like that will tick that box, but I just do it anyway. And I have enough exercise variation that feels okay for me. So with that in mind, we then focus on a vertical pulling movement, a lat pull down or a pull down variation. In my opinion, I think it should either be, if we're training the lats, it should either be shoulder width apart, so we're going down into the pelvis, or narrower, so sometimes these narrow neutral grips or some of these other variations where our arms are close is probably more ideal for training the lats than say a wider grip, even though people go, oh, you got to train wide to get wide, blah, 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 whatever. I don't think so. As we go out and grip, the arm or elbow starts to go away from our body, and now it's kind of wrapping around in that sort of direction there. So you allow the upper back and traps, rear delts to kind of all be able to pitch in. Now, if we want to go lats, we're thinking pull it down as if you're putting your arm in your pelvis, which is kind of the insertion point for the lat, or part of the lat that we're trying to train. With all that said, I go with a medium neutral grip, so we're going to be in here in a second. We set this nice and low so it kind of locks you into a position and you can't budge, so you have a lot of stability. And then as I'm doing this pulling movement, I'm thinking about pulling my arm down instead of kind of pulling back or doing anything like that. We're going down as if we're trying to drive that upper arm into your pelvis or into your back pocket. So we're like that. Some people even kind of pull down and in front, but essentially, yeah, just pulling it down versus back. All right, all that said, let's build up. We've got a couple sets here. Let's get after it. All right, so if we think about training the lats from the perspective of horizontally and vertically, and yeah, maybe you can get some things in between 45 degrees. The traps have a couple of different functions. Oh, for your information, we're moving on to the traps. So traps can do things like the shrugging motion, the retraction of the shoulder blades, but also the downward rotation of your shoulder blades or your scapulars. So again, over the course of time, there might be merit to make sure that we are ticking all those boxes. Now, what that might look like is, you know, a couple of exercise variations where they're moving for different paths. So if we've got something where we're kind of getting this, you know, retraction kind of action, we got one that's going a little bit up, which is going to be this one for today. And then over the course of time, we even have like a pull down variation that's kind of coming, 45-ish degrees, where we're rotating the scapulars down. So with all that said, we move on to the upper back. The first movement's a low row, which comes from low to high. So it's probably working sort of mid to upper traps in that kind of area there. And again, the next exercise then comes horizontally. So we're kind of focusing on different points. Now, you could get excessive with this and go, well, I want to do a pulling movement from here, 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 here. I think eventually that gets a bit excessive, but a couple of different exercise variations where they're coming from a couple of different paths to just tick all your boxes, right? So for the low row, we set the seat pretty high. Lock in with my straps. I kind of have to reach over to get them. We let everything kind of roll forward so scapulars come forward over the pads, and then we pull and squeeze the traps. So we kind of have this upward position where we are still getting to protract around the pad, but then we're angling up. Again, probably focusing on like mid to upper traps on this one. So first movement goes like that. Second upper back movement comes a bit more horizontally, but we'll do 2 sets here. I think I'm going upper weight this week, so let's go. Okay, so next we have a horizontal rowing machine. I don't know what you call this one, but we're going overhand. We've just kind of gone underhand from low to high to focus on kind of mid and upper traps. Now we're coming more horizontally, so this machine kind of comes horizontally, dips slightly down, so kind of that, I don't know, mid area, the upper back, and there's that slight dip down as well. So a good overall one. So yeah, changing angles to work on the upper back, from going from here to here, I think that's got merit. I think the back as a whole is probably the more complex muscle group that you have to think about, because, you know, when you think about chest, you're thinking about one muscle basically, and that muscle does have different, you know, paths that it goes, and maybe we should chain it from different angles. But this has multiple muscles. The back has multiple muscles, and then within those muscles, then you have fibers that are going in different directions. So it gets a little bit complex, you know, things like your quads, straighten your knee. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's relatively straightforward. Here we have a little bit more complexity, but yeah, I overthink things, but yeah, I think just hitting things from different angle, potentially different hand positions has merit. As always, I've got my handy dandy yoga block just to increase range. This one just limits range just a smidge. We're going overhand to kind of tick that box off. I'll strap in with these grips. Now, these grips are pretty handy if you have never used something like this. It just allows you to focus on the muscles and not your hands so much, so we can really feel the movement. So I'll lock in, again, protracting or letting the shoulder blades round around the pad. Drive the elbows back. So now you can see that this is kind of coming this way, potentially focusing on a different part of the back because it's going at a different angle, and therefore different fibers probably are in better positions to help with this job. All right, we're getting on here. Let's keep slaying, team. Does anyone still say slay? I don't know. All right, let's go. All right, we're doing a elbow supported lying dumbbell curl. So this is an absolute cracker. Couple of reasons this is quite good is because it stretches the bicep out. So the bicep passes both the elbow and shoulder joint. So to fully stretch or more stretch it out, taking it behind the level of the body potentially has some merit. And again, that stretch position seems to have a lot of value for muscle growth. But when we do things like incline curls, like say on a incline bench like such, it also doesn't get hard till we start going up against gravity. So this particular variation does both of those things. Get you in a really stretched position and make it hard in that stretched position, which that one does not do. You could do different variations with cable machines, so behind the body and stuff like that, which I also do. But this particular variation's been smashing, is that what the kids say these days? Slaying, things like that. So you'll kind of take your dumbbells like such. It's a bit awkward to get into position. We'll then get into a position like that. Arms come straight down into that kind of position there, and then we're curling up. So you think about how gravity is coming straight down. This is made quite hard in that stretch position, and then it gets easier as you come sort of more towards yourself. So with this particular version, we kind of want to milk and stretch and control that way down, and then curl from there. The bench gives us stability, which allows us to kind of push really hard and not be wobbling around and stuff like that, so we can go nice and close to failure. All right, let's get it on. What are you fucking laughing at?
I'm just saying that was pussy behaviour, mate.
All right, so next up I've got a single arm pull across. So this is quite good to do single arm on occasion because you can really customize the position. If we do two, they kind of collide with each other and they kind of get in the way. So I like the single arm version. I do a dual one as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. It saves a bit of time, which is good. So a bit of isolation delt or rear delt work just to kind of cap it off. So again, if we think about the deltoid, it has kind of three functions and three sections. One, the anterior, which will do things like this and helps with our pressing and all these kind of movements. One, the lateral, which is kind of the one where we do lateral raise and we take it out to side. And then the rear delt, which is kind of pulling the arm back. And that will contribute to all of our pulling movements pretty much. But it might not be exercises, it might not be taken to failure on those exercises. So my lats are going to failure on the first row variation and things of that nature. So it's just kind of like an assister, and I just want to make sure it is an exercise that also goes close to failure, and therefore I isolate it at the end. So for this particular variation, I've set it kind of head height for the cable. Will then turn away. Your arm is kind of getting pulled towards your chin. This big stretch through the posterior part of the delt. And then whatever height I've set this at, I'm kind of going along that path as far as the direction of my arm goes. So you could do this horizontally, you can do it this like I'm doing, even a little bit closer to the body, and maybe you should do them all across time. For today, I'm doing this one, and it's my only one. On the other day, I kind of changed the angle a bit. So change the angle, make sure we're ticking all the boxes, training all the parts of the rear delt. 2 sets here, done. Let's go. That is a wrap on the workout, guys. So I spent way longer here than I should because I was talking shit in between exercises and break periods and stuff like that. But this is kind of social time for me as well, or some of my only social time, to be completely honest. So bit of an introvert other than this, but good workout across the board, feeling pretty good with all the back movements. Now we've finished the first half of the week, but we don't want to be the people who go out hard and don't, finish the week off. So we got the back half of the week to go as well. So in my programming at the moment, it's basically a modified push-pull lower split where I go push, lower pull, and then I revisit that in the back end of the week, usually with some exercise changes and rep range changes and stuff like that for a little bit of variation. But essentially, push, lower pull, 6 days per week worth of training. And I like training, so coming here often is not a big deal to me, and training, and I quite like it, so it's fun. I think it can be fun for people if they kind of get into it, but not everyone gets to that stage, whether they are anxious to go to the gym or they potentially start off the gym going out too hard and then they fall off or whatever it might be. But I love it. I've been doing it for a long period of time. Makes me feel great, makes me better in other areas of my life, so I'll keep doing it pretty much forever. All right. As always, guys, if you like the content, hit the little subscription face up here. Be really appreciated. If you want to see how I'm training some of the other muscle groups, hit this playlist up here, and that will kind of show you how I'm training other muscle groups during the week. And remember, it's about progress over perfection. Coach Dan, signing off.